There's a wonder drug we all rely on. It fights infections.
That's extraordinary.
And makes it possible for us to have life-saving operations. It's vital in modern medicine.
We're going to give you an antibiotic.
Antibiotics are our frontline medical weapon. Since the very first antibiotic, penicillin, was developed in these laboratories in Oxford, they've gone on to save some 100 million lives.
But we've taken them for granted. We've been overusing antibiotics, and the bacteria that cause infections are becoming resistant to them. The headlines are saying we're on the verge of an apocalypse.
If nothing is done, then antibiotic resistance could become a greater cause of death than cancer.
And that would mean that annually, worldwide, 10 million people will die. I'm Angela Rippon, and I'm setting out on a very personal journey to discover the truth behind the headlines. I want to find out what we can all do to fight back, how we can cut down on the antibiotics we use.
No need for antibiotics?
No need for antibiotics.
Perfect.
And target when we should be using them. Right now, scientists are racing to find new antibiotics, and I'll be joining them. Are new antibiotics still to be discovered if we look in the right places?
You gotta keep out of the way of that jaw.
Or will scientists have to come up with an entirely new kind of treatment?
That's cool. That's a first.
Whether you've taken antibiotics before or not, this affects all of us, unless we act now.
That is amazing.
This is the truth about antibiotics. My journey begins in my childhood. So I've travelled to Plymouth, the city where I was born.
This was my very first school. It's a little nursery school which is just on the edge of Plymouth Hoe, and it's one of the few buildings that's exactly as it was when I was a little girl.
It was while I was growing up in this city that I contracted tuberculosis. In 1949, TB was a killer. I had to be quarantined in the hope that my natural defences would come to my rescue. I wasn't allowed to see my parents for weeks on end. It was common practice at the time. Yet a quarter of all those who contracted TB still died.
But I was very lucky because a couple of years before, a new drug had been released. It was called streptomycin. It was an antibiotic, and it saved my life.